Okay, let's get this underway. Bit of a rhymer today. There's more. G'day, Jason. How are you, mate? Hope we're well. Just looking at this Nikkei. It's open quite strong, which is not look a bit unusual. It wasn't as weak as other markets through the US session. You can see where was it? Just say the US opened here and started drifting lower, and now it's gapped straight back up again to where you know the Nasdaq. That's 500 point rally in the Nasdaq. That's what they're sort of saying here, I guess. But don't know why there's a bit of strength on the open into the Nikkei. Um, I may have missed something, but I wouldn't expect a lot of strength. You can see this. You've got a serious range through here. Resistance at 23.318, then again at 23.256. This might just be to clean out of these shorts before establishing and drifting lower all day. Um, that's what I'd be looking for. Now, if we just go straight up through these resistance zones, I'm happy to stand aside because I have no idea why. I've got no sort of premise of why this is apart from what I'm thinking it's more just a flush out. So we'll wait and see. There's still some strength there, and the US hasn't really moved. Um, so what was the close? 6 o'clock close. It has drifted high, but that's not much. It could be just shorts closing out. I wouldn't be. Don't understand why it's the Nikkei is ramping up just on the open. So it could find us getting ramped, sucker in a few buys, squeeze out some of these late sellers, and then establish some shorts. Bigger boys establish some shorts as the equity market opens. All right, so that's we might as well keep going through these. So the Dow, I'm expecting this level 27,480 to hold. Now, just as I thought of it, then remember we were talking about the strangely strong open into Europe after the sell-off. So if you get a chance, just watch it. Watch it on the open. It's 4 o'clock futures and 5 o'clock is the index, the indices. So it's worthwhile just watching to see what happens. I mean, I expect that they did, same sort of scenario. They had a bit of they were, so the DAX, for instance, was a bit of a sell-off. Sorry, sideways action. The FTSE actually opened up okay and had a bit of a sell-off to bounce, but that was all before the key selling pressure come into the Nasdaq and really started hitting the markets lower. So they were closed well and truly, before that. So if that's the case, and we're going to expect a bit of a sell-off, it's going to be Nasdaq driven or US driven, and you would expect a bit of fear to come into the market being a Friday, potentially, and considering they're going to play a bit of catch up into the European markets. Now, if they don't, again, I'm just skeptical that there's something's, some particular group is trying to support this market, whether it's ECB or whatever. But they come out last night and they said, well, they didn't say, but they're pretty much limited to their if the US dollar sinks, then they've got problems with their euro, appreciating and really capping any exports for the European area. There's not much they can do to stop that. So it could be natural because if like we've talked about with the US dollar, they factored in more stimulus. Now, if that doesn't come about, the markets start to melt down. There'll be a safe haven bid and a bit of closeout squeeze on the shorts that have built up over time. And I think that could be playing out now. You can see the US dollar reacted to the sell-off last night, up, bit of safe haven buying. So if that continues, if we start to get some more pressure into the Nasdaq, then expecting US dollar to rally, euro to come down, and potentially they've got a bit of what they want because the European region is not doing too bad. In all fairness, they are running out of tools if they have to. I think they're running out of tools if they have to. They can't cut rates. Stimulus is not quite working in the way of what they want with the euro. So we'll wait and see what the US dollar does, basically. But yeah, I would expect the US markets to play, European markets to play catch up. Here we go. It's just starting to come off that level. So there's going to be some selling pressure up here in the Nikkei. It's just if we can get some sort of lower high coming into play, even if it's just like this, a bit of chop and we start to get that grind lower, it may be just waiting for Hong Kong to open, the Hang Seng, but we'll see. So where was it? So Europe, yeah. It'll be interesting to see with the Dow whether this grinds back up and then if Europe starts to get out of hand on the downside, which they very well could, being a Friday, being in the market. You know, the NASDAQ's, it's different dynamics to what it was the other sell-off, I would expect. If we look at that, the previous sell-off was, you know, you're going to get that bargain hunting into the NASDAQ. So that previous sell-off had that, was this a session? Yeah, so that sell-off here, push lower, bounce back. Then we had this sort of grind back up, expecting these levels to hold. Now that we're back down there again and we're failing at lower levels, meaning sellers are coming in at lower levels, the pressure could be on. I think the key will be tonight to see what happens if we start to bounce back up off this level and it fades at a lower level again. Expect down the track, say 11,000, 1150, 11,050 to be broken on the NASDAQ. And that could trigger quite a wave because then, you know, next key levels down is right down here, 10.5. So it's a 500 point drop, could be done in the night, I guess. But it just could mean that this selling pressure could really start to lift. And I don't know why that never, every morning I'm starting to move that level. It should just save it, but it doesn't want to. Auto save. Oh, there you go. So that's what we'd be looking for. You know, you can see here that we're starting to break down. Again, we spoke about this yesterday. We've got these levels break down and hold. So the same sort of thing could be holding and then lift again. But, you know, I've just read something last night about there's some key option positions, bought calls obviously, that's starting to unwind. There's a few that notable, sizable options positions starting to get unwound into the NASDAQ, saying the Facebook, what was it, Netflix, and there's one other, can't remember. But if that's the case, then someone's starting to book some profits, then there's going to be limited upside, and you would expect people to start to that to flow on, that unwinding start to flow on into the index, which means lower prices basically. And I think the fact that it's gone up so hard for so long, and all the talk has been a meltdown, and it hasn't happened. When that kicks off, everyone's going to, in the back of their mind, and we're thinking meltdown, and this thing could get out of hand. So it's still finding that support through 1195, but I think the way that, you know, we bounced up here, made back a lot of the losses, and then we come straight back down again. So we've had a sell-off, rally, sell-off, and we're back down in the support zone. So the more it can't gain back up through these highs, the more people are going to get concerned about that sell-off coming into play. So that's in NASDAQ. Let me just go back over before I talk about the opens. Nikkei starting, here we go, starting to come down. So I'm probably going to miss something on that, which is, so be it, happens. So here's the close on the Hang Seng. Okay, 24,258, around that zone. Actually, just look over here. Give it the Hang Seng futures. Don't muck around there. So you can see we're closing right down in the support zone. Okay. And you've got the anchor to the downtrend. We're up here. So it's still, you know, it's a while away. That's at 24,3, say 400, about 150 points. So the NASDAQ, sorry, the Hang Seng can easily flush up and test that zone. You know, it's a couple hundred points. It just gets so much momentum, and then it can come screaming back down again. So what we'd be watching for is to see the index is the key, because I think the index is gap down, which you would expect it. I'll see. I should see where it's closing. So I just want to check out where the Hang Seng was closing at for, so 6 o'clock. So 6 o'clock. So it was closing. So Hang Seng index, this is the 6 o'clock close. When the index closes, we've had the Hang Seng rally and come back down again and flush out. So it closed roughly where it was at 6 o'clock, which means you don't maybe expect that gap down and then bounce, because we've had, you know, a couple of times the market's gap down. You're expecting, you know, after weakness and bounce back up all session. And we had that again last night. We had sort of, sorry, the market's actually gapped up and then sold off. So it's a bit of that reversal, if that makes sense. So the US was strong, they've gapped up and sold into it. US is weak, they've gapped down and bought into it. But today, it could be a fact that we're right down on this support. I think there's going to come a time when things are going to cave in a bit. We've spoken about this a bit on the NASDAQ. We've had that rising trend starting to break down. You can see here, if that's a trend line, we're starting to break down, which means this level sooner or later is going to come under fire around 24,100, which is only, you know, a few hundred points off. So there could be a bit of momentum. You might get a smaller gap. We may not. We may open here and then flounder and then get a lower high to sell into. and see if it can drive through that level and take out some stops. Because once it breaks that, I think it's game over for a bit anyway. On the Hang Seng, that could really get some steam to the downside. So that's what we're going to eye on today, mainly on the Hang Seng. Let's see if the SPY is going to opened up. Strangely enough, some strength. So that's that's in line with what's happened in the end. Is anyone, sorry, on the Nikkei, does anyone know of anything that's been announced I haven't seen? Is someone Trump's on the Twitter talking up stimulus or something like that, or is it just expectations that because we're going to sell off, we're going to get stimulus? Is that what's going to buoy the market today? Either way, that's some weakness of coming to that support, a big flush. Now that could be just a major flush of the shorts before we establish again. So the same thing as the Nikkei, because I wouldn't expect this market to be bullish today. I just would not expect it coming the weekend. It's opened up. Don't forget that's still before the index opens. It may be that we're just a bit of a flush with the expectations that we're not going to open on the ASX as weak as we expect. And then it could, if we start to hold some of these inside levels, especially 58.60, if we start to hold that, we may test it and start to hold lower highs. There could be a sell-off into the close, because personally I would not want to hold longs into the weekend ahead of a US session tonight, which could continue to mount down again another 500 points tonight. Then if you start to buy on the open, which retail, they get caught out time and time again. This could be a sign that we're not going to be as weak. Retail buy in, they get caught out with a bit of maybe a sell-off into the close, and then we get smashed tonight, and they've got all weekend to dwell on it, creating that havoc on the open on Monday. That's all if but I wouldn't be holding longs over the weekend. New longs anyway, because you essentially could be buying at the high. So we'll see how that goes. It's sinking a bit now, which is understandable. So it could be just a flush. Yeah, I'm sort of agreeing with you. Well, I'm agreeing with you, Jason. We'll see. Now that's it. We'll just go over the other majors. So we looked at the Hang Seng. We're looking at gold. Now, I know every man and his dog gets bullish on gold. I would like to be, but I just can't see. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at in gold. You've got that major uptrend, from these lows down at 1670. And you'll see it all over Twitter. People saying, you're stupid if you don't get into gold now. You're stupid if you don't get into gold now. Now, if it's linked to the US dollar like we think, why are you stupid? If the US dollar is going to rally on the back of a safe haven, they won't be buying into gold as a safe haven. Because if you're worried about a crash, you're not going to buy gold. You're going to buy something that's going to be backed by the US government, which is not gold. It's the US dollar. It's one of those things. If you're going to put your money somewhere, big boys are going to put their money somewhere, where are you going to put it the safest place possible, which is going to be bonds, US dollar. Excuse me. So that's why I don't particularly think that it's a great time to buy gold just yet, because it is reacting still to the US dollar. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Jason. It makes sense. We are so conservative, but it seems to be the market's been pushed around, bullied around a bit lately. I don't understand why, but we'll see. It could be so with gold. If we start to break down through 1940, for instance, there could be another sell-off, and especially if the US dollar gets some further strength today into the Asian session, into the European session, as maybe Europe gets smacked on the open, US dollar rallies, gold comes down. So I wouldn't be buying it just yet. I think you need to see, for me, there's some support coming through here, but there's also lower highs holding. So if lower highs are holding, it could come a time we're going to smash through 19, and then that's going to start attacking 1860 and potentially lower. And every ball that's built up here, and everyone that's spruiking go long gold, is going to start to look stupid, and people getting squeezed out of the market. So that's my view there. I wouldn't mind, if it starts to pop up here, and we start to break up, we need to break up through 1960, then you could be bullish gold. But until that happens, I'm not just yet. So we could see some action in the gold stocks today because they rallied yesterday. Gold sold off overnight. Really, it didn't really sell off as such. You can see these rally in gold. Everyone got a bit excited and then smashed back down again. Okay, so if that flow-on effect would mean people are going to be thinking twice about gold stocks today. I would be anyway, and there could be some action on the downside into gold stocks, the Aussie gold stocks anyway. Intraday, I wouldn't be looking at it too longer term because there's too many swings. Again, US rallies again, like they have last couple of sessions. They up 500 points on the Dow tonight. US dollar sinks, gold rallies. So you don't really, you don't want to be short gold gold stocks into the weekend. It's just an intraday play on the short side potentially. Now the other couple of things, crude come under pressure again, and you can see that sell off, bit of a ramp up here, getting more pressure. We'll go to the longer term charts because it could be, there's a couple of things. If we start to hold below this level, we start to chop around here and get some further weakness, there could be a big sell off on the cards, or we could be backing and filling. So the key levels really are up here. You anchor into that downtrend, and you've got an inside level. Now that's not a key level. You don't just sell off that level because that's the move down. We're backing and filling at the moment, and that's the anchor to the trend down at this stage. Okay, so we could get a flush like that, back up, flush, big hit. We could get this coming as resistance, which is fine, but the moves are down. There's been one leg up. We could still get, a leg up to flush this level, bring in some buyers, and then turn around and squeeze them straight back out. We might get a flush of this level all the way back up, and we don't know, or we could just head south from here. Okay, so I'm still bearish oil at this stage until something proves a bit different, and we've got just hovering around this level. So it's a sort of, we flushed that level, we're bouncing back. So if you're bearish, you're going to be concerned about that big move down, thinking, am I too late to the trend? If you're bullish, the downtrend hasn't broken. So it's kind of that mixed emotions at the moment with crude. But I think supply, we just saw the US inventories pop up, oversupply in the US, which leads to lower prices when you've got it at a time when demand could be waning for crude, which all points to lower prices still from here, but it's whether it's been factored in or not. Now, if we start to crash down through these lows, then it could be on for young and old, I think. Now, copper was the other thing we look at constantly, and that got smacked down a bit. So that bounce there was a bit of weakness into the US dollar, which you can see the bulls are trying. They're still trying to pump it up. It got pumped up, and there's no bearish action in the way. The turn on the US dollar, where it started to rally, bang, you saw a big sell-off into copper, and that was in line with the US Open too somewhere. So it was about midnight when the markets turned. The US NASDAQ opened up a bit and then was sold off from about midnight thereabouts. And that's when you got the US dollar rally, and then copper's really taken a bit of a turn. So that's showing that there is potential. We're starting to get heavy up here in copper and really starting to be pressured. And if they're continually bullish and those bullish starts to wane, or get hit at bullish sentiment, then there's going to be lower prices on copper, which would be in line with a NASDAQ sell-off and US sell-off and US dollar rally. So these are all the things we're looking at the moment. We'll just see how it plays out. I'll probably finish it there, guys. Any questions, feel free to send us an email to support@tradesetup.com.au. We're getting still some... Aussie is remarkably insensitive to my feelings on the downside. That's why it's hard to trade, because you get a bias down or up on SPY, and it can be proven wrong, and you get sort of one opportunity. So you can be biased down, you can sell, get squeezed out the whole time. It keeps popping, and all of a sudden when it does drop like a stone, you've given up. So I find it harder to sell that than actually trade the Hang Seng and potentially this Nikkei, which I don't want to see this gap fill straight away down here on the Nikkei. It'd be harder to sell when you see some more action here and this holds, and we start to roll. We hold below this 20 MA. We could get a move back down to 23,100, which is only about 70 points away, but you stop above 193, for instance. But it's just finding some buying up here. Wall Street, what are they doing? And don't know why. I mean, that's again, this kind of rejection and popping up on the Nikkei is a sign of strength for whatever reason. Again, just can't understand it. Yeah, does my head in too, mate. I think it's easily popped around. If you got a big fund that's hedging their positions into the SPY, using it to hedge, they're doing a lot of contracts at one time. You can't trade one or two. Your retailer, your punters can't hold it. So it's sort of just keep bearing that in mind. All right, we'll finish up there, guys. Remember to join in the Discord channel. If you want to learn more about it, send us an email, support@tradesetup.com.au, and I'll send you out a link. It's live trading from around 11 o'clock. I mean, it's only going for a couple of hours, 3 hours or so, while the Hang Seng's open, where most of the action is. Want to learn more, just send us the email. Otherwise, have a great weekend, and I'll speak to you again on Monday. So Monday is the no 9:40 stream. It'll be at 12:30 Melbourne time or Sydney time. All right, guys, enjoy, and I'll speak to some of you or most of you later on. Cheers, bye.